Hey guys, and welcome back to Reverse 1999. In today's video, I wanted to talk about the artificial somnambulism, the limbo, pushing through there. I want to give you guys some general tips that it doesn't matter what characters you have, could help you push through this. Now, I will mention some specific low rarity characters because there are some that I have had some use out of on my accounts whilst trying to push through this thing. So let's get into it. And the first one is that normally when you jump into one of these limbo stages, the second stage is often going to be harder than the first one. So obviously what you want to do is you want to go in here and you want to look at the enemies you have, because you don't want to be using, especially a main DPS that is weak to the elements. So when you come in here, for instance, I'm using Centurion, who is a beast character. These guys are mineral, meaning they would be strong to Centurion. So I don't really want to use my weak damage dealer against these guys who are just going to absolutely slap it. So the first thing is obviously making sure that your elements aren't weak against the enemies. Sometimes for supports or healers, it's okay depending on the situation if they really support a character well. Now, moving past that is if you have like 2 units neutral and stuff like that, normally the second stage is harder. Meaning that you want to take your better team to the second stage and use minimal investment for the first stage if you can. Obviously, you can't always do that, and sometimes the first stage is incredibly hard. But there's something else that I wanted to go into in this, and that is some tech units that you can use to sort of cheese your way through the early stage, like the first side, while saving your better units for the second side. If we look over here for me, I've managed to save my best healer, my best support, and my best damage dealer for this side. Now, the way I managed to do that, and I can't actually show you guys, and I've done it different on my other account as well. So some units. If you are not building a Sonetto is still a fantastic unit. On my other account, she is not one of my first 6 units to build. However, I still use her just purely for that attack lockout ability. On my other account, then she can die, bring my next unit in, and I'm pretty happy days. So even if you're not using a Sonetto, she can be super clutch in these situations, especially if one enemy decides to use 3 or 4 attack cards. You can just lock them out and the enemy essentially loses a turn. Now, having a low powered character in there for that is fantastic. On top of that, Sonetto has the buff, which is just percentage based. It doesn't matter her stats. So you can get a lot of use out of a like Insight 1 or Insight 0 Sonetto, even in these harder stages, even though she will eventually just die and move on, you can get a lot of use out of her. Now, the other one that I've used as well on this account is going to be something like Oliver Frog. The reason I use him is I've only got 6 units built currently. So my teams are normally going to consist of 3 characters, and that leaves me that 1 sub slot. Now, obviously, when you lose a character in a battle, you're going to lose 1 available card slot on your hand, essentially, which does suck. But what I found myself using sometimes was this Oliver Frog, and you can look at other tech units that might help you as well. And you put him in my team at the very start. He would give me my allies at the start of the battle this sturdiness buff and the defense increase. And basically I would pop that. I would do whatever shuffling I needed to with my other characters cards, play the cards that I needed to set myself up. Then he would normally die and I'd bring in my other core units. So then I would have my 3 core units. Yes, I've got 1 less card in my hand size, but it's helped me with that mitigation and it can allow me to sort of snowball my plays. Now that's not going to be usable every situation, but just something to take into consideration is some of these lower tier units. See if there's any of them that have some sort of beneficial or even higher tier units that you just haven't built. See if they've got some sort of beneficial effect that can be used off of a base 1-star card that can, aid you in what you're trying to do. If we look at something like I can't even say this chick's name, but maybe you've got her insighted up and you're using her. Actually, this is more of a later thing, but she does have an insight that does allow you to start with Moxie. So if you've got her at Insight 1, maybe having her in the team and starting your units with some extra Moxie can help you out in some sort of fashion to achieve what you're trying to do. So take into account these lower tier units. You're only going to be bringing 3 into your team in general in these early stages, because most people will only have 6 units built, but there are some really good ones that will be able to provide you some usage. Actually, I think she can go to Insight 1 for free, and I just haven't done it. Yeah, so you can get her to Insight 1 for free and use that extra Moxie at the start of battle for any of your characters. The next thing you can do is experiment with your resonate builds. When we look here over at my Centurion, I've now got her on a balanced build, trying to give her some more tanky stats along with some attack and crit to allow her to sort of maximize the damage whilst also mitigating as much as possible and allowing her to survive. Different stages will have different requirements for different characters depending on your teams. So sometimes, especially with your main DPS, your other characters are going to be pretty standard, but especially with your main DPS, you know, you can experiment with crit builds, you know, more damage focused builds versus more tanky survival type builds. The thing is, some of your support units you can build for a bit of damage as well. Once again, this one I've kept pretty balanced here on my Ann Lee, but you know, in some stages, even though she is my support character, she can deal some really solid damage. So sometimes I will shift to a more damage focused build. So playing around with resonate can really help you in some situations, depending on what the enemies are, obviously. And the other thing is, if you're still trying all this stuff and you can't do it, sometimes you will just have to wait, farm up some upgrades, and then come back at a later stage and do it. Unfortunately, that is just the way sometimes these things pan out. And now the final thing that I wanted to go through, and it's probably the most powerful thing you have at your disposal, is retrying. Retrying is so overpowered in this game, it's not funny. The fact that you don't have to, like, once you've cleared one side of the limbo, you can jump into the other side and, you know, if you don't like what you get, you can retry. Now you can stretch this as far as you want. So for me personally, over here on this side, I basically, when I start, I look at what I get dealt. And this is what I've been doing. At the moment, this is a decent hand because I can merge this, I can get my Moxie straight up, I can buff to mitigate a little bit of damage, and then I can roll into this. And this isn't a horrible start for me, but you can, with your retries, you can change the extent of your retries to what you wish. So for instance, that next flop was pretty average, so I would restart this stage because me on this stage, I have gotten towards the second enemy to about 10% health, and like so close to winning it. And what I've found is I've gotten used to what my perfect strategy is, and my perfect reroll strategy, unfortunately this isn't completely ideal, but it is to have these two cards here so that I can merge them, meaning at the start of the next turn, this becomes a 3-star card due to Ann Lee's passive, which means it can lock out an enemy. So what I've been doing, ideally this would not be my first card here, because I want to be able to luck into merging something else. But normally with something like this, I would go like this. Ideally, that single target attack for my Centurion would be the first card so that maybe I could merge it. But what I'm actually at the stage at now is where I need to see one enemy on the next turn use 3 to 4 attacks, and that's when I'm in a decent situation. So you'll see here, we get this as a control ability. That enemy uses 3 attacks. That is really nice. Ideally, it would use 4, but now I can lock that one enemy out of all of his attacks. Unfortunately, the flop here wasn't great for me in that I didn't get any other Centurion abilities, so I'm not going to be able to burst enough damage. So I can already tell, unless I get a god tier flop on the next turn, that this is going to be a failed attempt for me. Now, obviously, different stages for different players is going to be different depending on this, but this stage is just so hard that requires me to get so much RNG for me to actually clear it, that, you know, I just know now from doing a ton of retries whether it's going to be a success or a fail based on those things in particular. So you can see here, I can now lock this guy out, which is perfect. I can get some more damage, and now I need a really good flop. Unfortunately, we didn't get it because what I would have needed to do was basically fall 2 of this card here, get 2 of them, merge them into a 2-star, use this to create another one to make this one another 3-star, and then have another one of these enemies doing 4 attacks. Like I said, this is where I'm at this stage because it requires a lot of emphasis on RNG and getting the absolute god tier of RNG for me to defeat this stage. At the moment, this isn't the RNG that I need to defeat this stage. So unfortunately, I already know by looking at this that I'm going to have a loss on this stage, so I can retry again. But once again, every player every battle is going to be different, but just know that you can retry as many times as you want, and just keep going for that ideal start. And ideally, like I said, I want my 2 An Lee cards at the start like this. So this one actually turns into another good reroll, and this one's actually even better. So I actually do want to play through this one because this is looking quite solid, because we could also get my Centurion flop to give her a 2-star card, which would be really nice. So let's see what we get. Unfortunately, it's the wrong card, but this still works out pretty well for me. So we'll play through this. We need one of those enemies to take 3 to 4 attacks, ideally 4 attacks by one enemy. So this is 3, not too bad, not as ideal as I would have hoped, but it's still pretty solid because as you can see, I can lock out that enemy, I can do this, get my Moxie up, and then I can get a big attack. Now I'm going to shift my focus to this enemy because now we are getting some damage in with the An Lee, which makes that enemy lower, and now what I want to do is ideally focus down on that one enemy. And as you can see, this is really nice. Now, obviously, if I had have had the situation where that one enemy had all of the attacks, it would have been better. We would have taken the extra damage. However, now we are in an awkward situation with this where we have too many of these cards. So I don't think I'm in a situation where I can win this once again. I can get this to a 2-star and get it to a 3-star next turn. It's going to require the enemy to ult on the right character. So let's see if we can get this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go that, we're going to go that, and we're going to go heal. Hopefully we can top off. Hopefully they use the ultimate on Centurion, because Centurion can live the ultimate, but also it's a silence and it doesn't affect Centurion. So we need the ult on the Centurion. Unfortunately, it goes there, which means we are more or less going to fail this stage. But sometimes you can get good RNG on the flop after this and still make something of it. So we're still decently healthy on these 2 characters. The enemy does have an ult. Hopefully he uses all the cards on this ulting character. Okay, 3 cards. Honestly, it's not too bad of a situation. So now we can do this. We can use our ult, I can go into that, and now I can poke a bit more damage onto this guy. So let's see how this pans out. Hopefully this goes a little bit better, but this is what I'm talking about. If you need god tier luck on a stage, you can retry for days, for absolute days. Unfortunately, we got the crits on the wrong target there, which kind of hurts us because now we're sort of out of position on this one. Okay, we just managed to live that. Now, these cards on the flop aren't very promising to us, so we're going to just rinse this out. See if we can get some single target damage and buffing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm going to pop that. I'm going to pop that on him as well. And we're kind of trying to clear out this one enemy target. Or do I do, you know what we're going to do? We're going to play it like this. No, we kind of got to clear that enemy target out. Hope the ult goes onto An Lee or her, and then hopefully we can live and do something else with Centurion. I'm not really loving my chances, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to do that to spread the damage and hopefully land the kill and get some chip damage on the other enemy. So we'll see how this one goes. Boom. Okay, so this should get the kill on the second enemy. Unfortunately, it is going to heal the first enemy as well, which kind of sucks for me. But let's see. Oh, we just missed the kill. So unfortunately, the ult goes out on there. If that ult did not land there, we would have been fine because we could have then AoE'd them both down in the same turn and we could have had a clutch win there. But that is what I wanted to show you, essentially, that you can retry until you get the godly RNG that you need, and it can help you clear these stages. So like I said, guys, those are some general tips. It also depends how much time you want to spend in this thing to grind it out and do it, because at the end of the day, like I said, you can always just wait, power up, and come back later. But you know, if you really want to push the limits, you can spend as much time as you want and lose a day into it. But anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.